So the Fed is the most divided it's been in more than 6 years. And for me, this was the top headline of the day. Again, the Fed is divided, and this represents, right, a country divided, an economy divided, our politics are divided. It's tough to talk about any of this stuff anymore because we can't even agree on anything. The divided Fed approves third rate cut this year, sees slower pace ahead. They're looking at, maybe this is from the Fed, maybe one rate cut next year, theoretically zero. Markets are expecting possibly one or two, so there's going to be divergence there. What is market expectations? What does the Fed actually do? Fed cuts rates again, signals it may be done for now. But you had three officials dissented in opposite directions. So Mirren, I think it's the Trump dude, he wanted a 50 basis point cut, so a bigger cut. Two people on the Fed then, remember there's three dissented, 3 out of 12 that is, said, nah, let's not do anything, okay? Where we're at then is Trump, of course, wants bigger cuts. He wants more borrowing, more money into the system. Just make it so he and his buddies can borrow to infinity, right? And essentially the billionaire type class. So Elon Musk needs to make his new AI company, or Trump's got buddies that want to build more golf courses, or they want to build more data centers, right? Just get the borrowing going.
But when we announce good results, the market should go up. Now it's when you announce good results, Michael, the market goes down because they say, oh, that means things are good. That means we're going to kill it by raising interest rates. I think it's really wrong. It should be the opposite of what it is now. It should be the way it used to be. We announce good results, the market should go up, and we should keep driving it up and have it keep going up and let it be much, much bigger, much, much better. And, growth doesn't mean inflation. They're always afraid that, oh, we have, and if there is inflation, that's okay, then we can slow it down. But we should be able to do a lot better than 3 and 4. We're scheduled to be at 4%, which is pretty amazing because we have a deadhead Fed hair. I mean, this guy, the head of the Federal Reserve is a stiff. And, you fight that. It's amazing. We fight that, and yet interest rates are...
Trump's talking about, we need the stock market to go up to infinity, and let's not worry about inflation at all. Let's keep cutting forever. Let's grow forever. Whatever whacked out stuff that he always says, and he really does say these kind of things. He actually wants his buddy Hassett to head the Fed. That'll probably be announced shortly who's going to replace Federal Chair Jerome Powell. Kevin Hassett is one of Trump's dudes, basically. It was either him or Scott Bessent were sort of the favorites. But people don't like it. I mean, look at this. This is actually come from CNBC, which is pretty funny. Hassett likely next Fed chair, okay? But most think Trump should nominate someone else. This is where we're at, right? You ask people who follow this stuff, right? CNBC did a survey. Who's going to be picked? Who do you like? We think Hassett's going to be picked, but we don't like him. And then the numbers shook out to be like, December survey shows 84% believe Trump will tap Hassett, maybe a double tap, who knows, right? But that's the majority think it's going to be Hassett, right? And then it says, but only 11 think that's what the president should do. People want someone else, but they all think it's going to be Hassett who they don't want. Our news is always so crazy every day. What's wrong with Hassett? I'll just be frank with you guys. So he heads up this, I think they call it the Economic Council is what they keep calling this thing. And they just cook a bunch of nonsense numbers, put stuff out. Hassett always tells you how rich you are and how awesome you are. And basically they're liars. Just long story short. And if you want a Fed that bases monetary policy on reality, Hassett's not your guy. If you want monetary policy to be like, hey, let's live in Delulu land and let's gaslight everyone nonstop, hey, that's Hassett and that's Trump. So makes sense, right? They go together. We'll see, because what they've been doing, and you'll see in all the reports, Trump's people have been floating, different names just to see how various markets, or you could say market participants, however you want to call it, just how people are going to react, how the big money's going to react. That's a better way to put it. How are foreign governments going to react to this stuff? Are we still going to do business with the Trumpers if it looks like Hassett's going to melt down the economy? Is anything trustworthy anymore? And we're not even getting government data these days. All this is, it's a mess. And then this also tells the story. Look at this. Massive debt-fueled deals from Warner to Electronic Arts are back. Great. It's honestly, guys, every day I check this stuff, it's just borrow to infinity. Largely, this stuff is unsustainable, as we saw with the great financial crisis. And then the Trump people keep wanting to deregulate everything. So there's that. Let me read a little bit more of this stuff you guys can hear, and you'll see how crazy these things are. With progress on inflation stalled, right? So the Fed had always said they wanted to get down to 2% inflation, but I think we're closer to 3% and just trending upwards. Officials had indicated in the run-up in this week's decision that further reductions could require evidence of labor market deterioration, right? So we're worrying about the job market falling apart, basically. On Wednesday, their painstakingly calibrated post-meeting statement, they always are very careful with their words, it's kind of what they're saying, signaled a higher bar to additional cuts. So basically, they're kind of reticent. They're not so apt to want to cut a whole bunch more next year, right? So this is going to be different than what Trump and his people want, though. Echoing a similar pivot to the sideline after cutting rates 1 year ago by saying that, quote, extent and timing of those moves would depend on changes in the economic outlook. Here's another quote. We're well positioned to wait and see how the economy evolves from here, okay?
We do, through our vast network of contacts and just through our observation of what's going on in the economy, we hear about this a lot. If you listen to the earnings reports for consumer-facing companies that tend to deal with low and moderate income people, they'll all say that we're seeing people, tightening their belts, changing products that they buy, buying less, and that sort of thing. And so it's clearly a thing.
Now I want to bring into what Americans are saying about all this stuff, and it gets to be, I'll try to say this as simply as possible, very sensitive topics. And there's a lot of sort of no things you don't talk about in USA, and it makes, as I tell you guys stuff all the time, it actually makes YouTube really hard to do if you want to tell people the truth. If you don't want to tell people the truth, then YouTube's actually really easy. Just lie nonstop or mislead or only tell half-truths. And it's tough. I'll just say this, it's tough. So I'll try my best to tell you guys the truth. And also you have to think about this. Another way to think about the USA, there's a lot of people under severe stress and severe financial pressure. It's the best way to put it. And when you're in these conditions, it's like, what's the right word to say? Like the USA is like a truck filled with a whole bunch of, we could say, dynamite. And, you don't want to be driving any sort of kind of bumpy road that could upset the dynamite, I guess you could call it, or something. Or at any moment, something could just set off the truck. And that's kind of what it is. Or another way you could say it's like walking on eggshells nonstop, right? Where you don't want to break anything, but it's like everything's so easy to break. That's sort of how people are, is because people are under stress all the time. And so people in America are fighting nonstop. And that's why it started with even the Fed is, divided. Everything is. You can look at this here. 55% in the new poll blame Trump administration for higher grocery prices. Okay. This right there, like over half the people are talking about grocery price. And then actually, the better way to state it is, okay, 55% of the people blame Trump. So that means there could be, Trumpers out there that don't necessarily blame Trump. Maybe they're going to blame Biden, right? But that still doesn't change the fact that basically stuff costs more at the store and you're not getting paid enough. That's basically what it boils down to. Stuff costs too much, right? You see it here. Political put out something that was really, unfortunately, sad and eye-opening at the same time. It says, new poll paints a grim picture of a nation under financial strain. Like literally, you see it in our headlines. I'll give you the basic gist of it. So you have multiple things to consider. First, you have the tariffs. So generally speaking, people don't like it. Long story short, people don't like it. Okay, who wants to pay more for crap? I don't want to pay more for crap. Do you want to pay more for crap? Of course not, right? And so that's why then the Trump people always go out on TV and they try to pretend that other countries are paying for said things, which is just a lie, right? You're paying it. You the importing company, and then they pass it on to you, the consumer. It's not that complicated, but you get gaslighted in Trump world. And then when you ask Trumper people, they don't like the tariffs. Like no one wants to pay more. but some of them, and it's actually a minority. Okay, it's not a majority. It's a minority will say, well, it's a pain, but we have to do it because things will be better in the future. And I just feel like they're just lying to themselves at this point. But that's a small portion. Okay, and then you have people talking about that basically college costs too much, which I agree. College is really expensive, and you get into some really sensitive numbers because basically, and I'll give you the numbers. It's and people get upset when you talk about this stuff, but I'll just tell you what it is. So first says, this is from the survey or poll, the tuition is too high. So I agree. I just checked the numbers. It's a state sort of like tuition, room and board. State college would be like 30 grand a year, which is a lot. You want to go to a private school like Ivy League level, these kind of things. 90 grand a year, this kind of level, like it's really expensive, so 3 times more. Okay, so I agree, things cost a lot of money. I agree, but listen to these numbers here. Overall, 62% of Americans said college isn't worth it. Okay, so that is a majority. 62% say college isn't worth it in America. So people say because it either costs too much or doesn't provide enough benefits. So a couple reasons. A belief supported most by 18 to 24-year-olds and those aged 65 and up. So ironically, I'm 50, so I'm not in either of those groups. So I disagree with these things. And then here's a key thing also. The income gap between Americans with college degrees and those with high school degrees widened over the last 2 decades. If you put this stuff together, you understand the issue that we have. And it's a complicated issue. That's why it's very sensitive. I try to be nice about this stuff, and I'll try to make it more simple. Majority of people just don't think college is worth it. Okay, it costs too much, or the benefits aren't there. But if you just look at the numbers, and if you want your life to be better, having an education will help you get a better job, and you'll get paid more. That's just if you're talking about money. Okay, and I also want to make it extremely clear. Not everyone necessarily needs to go to college, and that's not the only way to success. There's a lot of things that you can do. But in the USA, I'll just say this, it's hard to find a company or organization that treats you well. Many employers just don't treat their workers very well. And I think that goes across the board for multiple industries. It is a massive cultural thing, and you can get on that. I'll just say this, like, for example, I think in my opinion, say, I used to work in USA, did all kinds of jobs. I'm using an example of, like, say, a FedEx driver, UPS driver, these kind of jobs, etc. Because you don't necessarily have to have a college degree for that, or you could just say bus driver or firefighter, police officer. Just jobs that keep society functioning, right? You don't necessarily need to have a college degree for that, but there's nothing wrong with these kind of jobs, like. Or say the mailman or mail woman, mail person, right? And I mention this because I remember a time when I was at USA, and I like to see people at the community, like, honestly, the delivery guy, or there's a guy in my neighborhood, but it could be a woman, but, delivery person is like the greatest person. They come in, they bring your packages, they bring you mail, and you're like, hey, how you doing? Great. And for some people, it's a fantastic job. You're outside. You don't have to be in an office. Not everyone wants to work in an office. I hate working in offices myself. I don't want to sit in a small room and behind a computer screen nonstop. I want to be outside, right? For some people, say, if you're a truck driver and you're driving across the road, and it's just the freedom of driving. And not every job is for everyone. And I think what's sad in USA, like these kind of jobs, if you want to talk about plumbers or electricians, things like working with your hands, fixing things, right? It's fantastic for people. I like to fix stuff also. It's hard to explain because, and I also want to just be honest with you as well. Some jobs physically it's tiring, right? So you can't do that kind of job forever. And so there was a time when some of these jobs, I use the example of UPS or FedEx, where the benefits are actually pretty decent at these jobs. Same way at, say, if you want to work in an auto plant, sometimes the benefits are actually pretty good. But in USA, since, say, the 80s, when Reagan and such wanted to basically weaken the unions, and suddenly you have a lot less worker protections. It's more than just Reagan. We'll just say this, that the wealth gap in USA has been growing between rich and poor. It's obvious. And one way is if you want to, move up It just, you get an education. It doesn't mean everyone has to do it. I just want to make that clear. But it helps if you understand what's going on, and it gives you more opportunities, especially if, for example, you see, and for example, when I was a kid, you could just see it. I saw the development of the computer industry, right? So it was pretty obvious where things were going. you could see it, right? So I know what to say. And these days people say, hey, it's all AI, and that's where we're going to go. It's not exactly the same as the internet or computer industry. Certainly there's going to be AI stuff, and we'll talk about it several times on channel because it's a complicated issue. But yeah, you do want to go where there's opportunity. And I think, for example, if we just talk about working with your hands, if we get into things with alternative energy, and there'll be people who will be installing solar panels, just for example, or doing more wind turbines and these kind of things. There'll be jobs in this kind of stuff. There'll be jobs fixing our infrastructure, and we'll always need people to, install internet access for people. There's always things that people need to be doing. So when I bring up the college thing, I tell you the numbers, I tell you what people are thinking, but it's frustrating when you have a majority of Americans don't think college is worth it. Long story short, right? You see the numbers, and then you see the numbers of like, okay, if you have a degree, you're going to make more money. Long story short, right? And then people who don't go to school get really angry and upset they don't get paid enough, and then they vote for Trump, and the Republicans, which is a party that attack workers, and it's frustrating. And I wish people would talk more honestly about this stuff. But again, sensitive topics. There's that. More of these things you're looking at. People were complaining about food costs in the survey, housing costs. You guys already know this stuff. Some of the numbers, though, were really frightening. I'll give you an example. It says half of those surveys said they find it difficult to pay for food. Half of those surveys said it would find it difficult to pay food. It's like, how can America claim that they're just like great developed country when it's like people can't even eat? I don't even know what to say. It's just like, and then you get gaslit. Housing's too expensive. That was up there, and then healthcare is too much. You already know about the housing thing. It's just, it's expensive. And it just keeps trending that way. And it's probably going to keep trending that way because, people who are all voting Trump, you're not going to get help there. I'm telling you the truth on this stuff. Healthcare costs. There were some numbers that they gave that were really disturbing. Basically, people are skipping going to the doctor. It says more than a quarter, so 27% said they have skipped a medical checkup because it cost too much. And that's in the last couple of years. Or 23% said they have skipped a prescription, right, of a dose because, again, it's just costs too much. And so you have essentially half the people can't afford food. A quarter of the people don't have Medicare, right, or medical, stuff that they need to stay healthy. And so, it's reflected in the Republican policy of like, oh, well, we don't worry about the bottom, 10% or bottom 20%, or you can argue bottom 90%, right? But depending on how you want to look at it. And then because the society is so anti-education, you see it in the numbers, then a lot of people don't understand what's going on. And it's easy to fool people into blaming, certain groups. Oh, it's that particular group from that particular country. So that's where we're at. I just wanted to talk to you guys about this stuff, and I'll go over some more details of other economic stuff as we get it. And that's what's going on. Catch you all in the next video.